Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nordic Sound Channel. I am back from what seems to be the dead during the final few weeks of my semester here. But I could not resist coming back just to talk about this beautiful project with Nordic Animism and the wonderful musicians here with us today for Raven Brings Runes. Would the three of you like to introduce yourselves? I guess, Rune, you go first.
Cool. Yeah, my name is Rune. Rune. I'm a historian of religion, and at present, I've worked on a lot of different things and lived in a lot of different countries, working on anthropology-like things. And then at some point, I decided to sort of turn the perspective of this anthropology, the animist kind of anthropology, onto our own sort of North European heritage, and that's where the Nordic animism sort of as a formulated idea kind of came out. So I made the platform Nordic Animism at some point a couple of years ago. Originally, I wanted to call it Norse Animism, but then I changed my mind about that. But
All right, cool. Rune, we're definitely going to be hearing about more about Nordic Animism in a minute. But next, Christina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. So my name is Christine Kammerer, and I've composed music most of my life. I've recently found out I am the fifth generation of composers in my family, hailing down from the south of Germany, from Bavaria, and I have primarily composed a mixture of singer-songwriter and folk music for quite a long time, both with my Viking folk band, Gjaldulei, and in the later years with Jotun Revolution. And I am currently working on a solo album, which would be recorded next year, the same with Jotun Revolution. And I have a master's degree in musicology and cultural studies. So a lot of what I do when it comes to music is try to figure out how you can curate or convey culture through music. And for instance, create projects like Raven Brings Runes. So that's why it's been very exciting for me to do so. Yeah.
Awesome. Looking forward to hearing more from you. Now, Kjell, would you like to introduce or reintroduce yourself to everyone here?
Yeah, I can do that. So, yeah, I'm Kjell Braaten, and yeah, I've been doing music most of my life myself. I've been studying world music and ancient Nordic music traditions and history, which I also lecture in. I've been composing music, producing music for other people for like 30 years or something. And yeah, I've been, some introduced me as an expert on the old Nordic music scene, and I've been working with it since like late 90s, sometime when I started doing lectures about this. And yeah, I've been part of bands like Wardruna. I've been making music for TV series like Vikings Valhalla and such. So yeah,
and I just recently learned you were in an Abath music video just a few days ago, right? Weren't you?
In which one?
Abath? Is that how you pronounce it? I mean, he's
yeah. I was in one of the Abath videos. Yes, that's right.
So that slapped me across the face. I went and I watched that music video. I was like, oh, there he is. You're everywhere. All right, so today we are talking, of course, about your guys' new project, Raven Brings Runes, which is a very striking project for me, bringing music into an idea of, how can music be used for, I don't know, activism or trying to make a difference, social issues, things like that. And so the basis from which you guys all seem to be working is this Nordic Animism platform and project that Rune has been building up for quite some time. So Rune, would you like to give the listeners here who might not be familiar with the Nordic Animism project a little bit of background?
yeah, let me do that. Let me first say that, like, when we say Nordic Animism, of course, it's a bigger thing than just the specific perspective than that I have sort of kind of introduced and I'm trying to develop in different ways. It's not like I didn't invent Nordic Animism, it's a perspective that is there and something that was there quite a lot already, and quite a lot of people were in many ways sort of already doing in so many ways.
Right.
I just kind of so if I'm talking about specifically about what my perspective of what it is, then then it's basically that animism is the idea. It's not necessarily the idea that everything is animate. Like this ugly lighter that's lying on my table is not particularly animate, right? But it is the idea that there is personhood in a wider sense than we're used to thinking. There are persons in the world. Some of these persons are human, but we need to behave with kindness and respect to all of them. That's basically animism. And that behavior, the practices, the ways of doing that, that is particularly the animism. And that's depends on different environments in the world, because there are different others in the environment. If you live in the Sahel belt in Eastern Africa, then baobab trees are really important for you, right? Very, very important other in that environment. And relating, politeness, how you engage each other, that's different. And you know that as soon as you travel in the world, that cultures are different all over the world. In the Sahel belt, you touch the shoulder of a person you meet, and then you shake the hands, and then you touch the shoulder again, and that's how you say hello, right? So there are differences like that. Now, the Nordic animism part of it is basically looking at what are the forms of relating and what are those others that we relate to when we are in the North European space, or perhaps when we are descendants from North Europeans. So we have that, bring that culture with us. The baobab tree is not particularly important here, but the elder tree, for instance, in southern Scandinavia is hugely important. And so that this is just one example. And then, of course, there are many different examples of different behaviors and different parts of culture that could be characterized as Nordic animism. There's like millennia of tradition of keeping specific grave mounds sacred in specific ways. And this is, of course, transformative. It's not the same practice in the 19th century as it was in the Bronze Age when some chieftain was buried in that mound. It has changed a lot, but it's there. It is there. It's part of that landscape relating, and there's specific others. And this is of course, and the term Nordic is perhaps almost a little bit random. I mean, I actually felt it was missing actually the west side of the North Sea. I would really have liked to have a little bit of the British Isles sort of being part of that, because there's some very beautiful animist traditions over there. But you need a word, so
yeah.
Nordic it became. But so yeah, does that sort of sum up a little bit what I mean when
oh yeah,
and perhaps Kjell and Christina have other other ways of thinking.
Yeah,
about
I'd love to hear what others. So I guess Christina, you first. What does Nordic animism mean to you? I guess before we start getting into the actual music that you guys made through its meaning.
Well, I think with what Rune said, that I think you made an excellent point in saying that Nordic animism, the Nordic part, is just part of it. Because what I feel a lot, I recently moved to Scotland, like a little under a year ago. And one of the things I've done over there, I've worked a lot with the meeting between the Celtic and the Nordic folk lore and folk culture. And what I find that's so magical about animism, they're like loads of different things. There's my own practice, and then there's how it interacts in society. So what I love about Nordic and Celtic animist cultures is that we've got so many different traditions in common. So animism becomes a way of meeting across cultures, not just in the Celtic and Nordic cultures, but across all cultures. And I will be quite honest when I say that in this forum, I feel like the child speaking amongst the adults, because both Rune and Kjell have done this a lot more than I have.
Well, I'll join you in that corner, Christina.
Yeah. So that's also why I felt so extremely lucky to get to work with what in my world seems like these giants within this forum and this culture. So that's one thing, is that this tie that we've got to spirits and nature, for instance, trees, bushes, rivers, things we might see in ordinary life as inanimate objects, actually are full of life. And for me personally, animism was a thing that grew a lot in me since I lost my granddad 7 years ago, because I went through a long time of not being able to accept that he was gone. And then I found Asatro. I delved deeper into Nordic religion and Norse mythology, but I felt I needed to go deeper into that. And animism, and this idea that, first of all, everything has a spirit. Everything in nature has a spirit, and that once a spirit also departs this world, it's not actually gone. That made me a lot more curious about how I can attach myself onto that world and do practices within that realm. So animism to me means a connectiveness both to the other world and to, like Rune says, to the, you have such a great formulation of it, to persons that are not human, but people that are other than human. Mm-hmm. If it makes sense.
Oh yeah. That was beautiful. Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you for sharing that with us. How about you, Kjell?
Well, I must admit, after these two beautiful speeches, it feels a little bit like we would say in Scandinavia, jump after Virkula. Well, to me, it's my approach to it has been a little bit. It has come a little bit more sneaky than this, because the expression of animism itself is rather new to me. But then it came in and all of a sudden I got a word for something I didn't really have a word for, that I have been doing like most of my life. I mean, I grew up in a farm in the middle of a forest, and I spent much of my time out there. And when I grew up, I had some time when I moved into a city, to the capital of Norway, and I was like quite urban for a while, and then I met these people that had this kind of the same view as myself, and we started meeting up, and we started go to the forest, and through music really, which was our meeting point, amongst others like Gustav Holberg that you probably heard about. Mm-hmm. And we started doing this, and we had the kind of same way of seeing things, but we didn't have any word for it really. So to me, the word and the term animism is rather new, but it's been part of me for as long as I can remember. And as you point out, Christina, it's also about meeting of cultures, which is lately I've started to discover how much this has meant to me while I have been working with exactly this. I've been working so much with people from different cultures and trying to help them to fit into the Nordic society. And here, I mean, if you talk to people here in Norway, we have this thing. Most people wouldn't know this expression really, but most people seek out to the forest, out to the mountains, out there to be in contact with things. They just don't have the expression for what they're doing, and it's rather interesting really to see, because it's such a big part of the society, and a way to learn people how to fit into this society is also to teach them these views of things, and how important it is to us as human beings. if this gives any meaning to you guys.
Totally. And I think the good point that you guys are making there is also that animism is not something that is, I mean, it might be kind of related into landscapes, but it's not bound to closed groups of people like that, which is perhaps what we would tend to imagine. If we think about it as a kind of spirituality, we will probably think about it a little bit as an operative system, a little bit like many people would perhaps imagine a religion. I become a Muslim, then that means that I buy a whole package. I need to perform these rituals. I need to internalize these beliefs. I need to perhaps behave in a certain way and so on. And in fact, like Christine was saying, like many of these behaviors, they very cross-cultural. I was just sitting looking at Celtic material on sacred fire right now, and it is surprisingly identical to Nordic material on sacred fire, which is again surprisingly identical to Baltic material on sacred fire, and it's all identical to, for instance, Russian. There's basically a huge area in northern Europe where people are relating to fire in very similar ways. So it's that relation to that thing in the world, and that is so. And that's actually something about what is, I think, very essentially non-nationalist about animism. That it's about relating to something in the world, and that is often very transcultural.
I think that's beautiful. I mean, that's what draws me to it as well, is the, you get, I share your same hesitations when you use, as a guy who's hosting this platform called the Nordic Sound Channel, like I actually am about the actual geographic aspect of it and the culture from that area. But I mean, like when you're talking about Nordic animism, I see where your hesitation came into to use a word like that, because it branches out beyond that, right? Like the way me and Kjell were talking last time I had him on was, when you're talking about Nordic music, you're also talking about music from all over the world, because it's just how music gets transferred, right? And with animism, it's the same way, where it's, if anything, it's like, I see it as a mode of communicating, or it's like a language system that you can use. For instance, I had the same experience as Kjell, where I had these ideas in my head, but I didn't know there was a word for it. I used to, I've grown up with animals and pets everywhere. I used to work on a farm. I'd always go on hikes as a kid. The only word I could use was the typical, I want some time in nature. And it wasn't until later in life where I realized that what I was looking for was some sort of interconnectedness with non-human people. Is that the phrase that we've been using? I really love that. Non-human persons, that's sort of what it is. So I think that this is perhaps a good way to segue into so the parrot is going to be a huge fan of this conversation, because I'm about to make it about birds. Ravens, right? If we look at ravens as this non-human persons, right? The raven seems to be at the center of, doesn't seem to be, it's in the title of the project that you guys do together. And so, Rune, would you like to give us a little bit of background on what the raven symbolism means? I have read what you guys have on your website, on the Bandcamp and all of that. But I would love for you guys to just say a little bit about what the raven means in this animist system.
Oh, yeah. Think about what I just said about the fire, that there's a specific way of relating to fire in what it seems to me from just cursory research in a belt across Northern Europe. Now, there are similar ways of relating to that particular other in our landscapes, the raven, not only across different cultures in Europe, but in what you could call a circumpolar belt all around the northern part of the globe. So you find these extremely similar raven motifs among Native Americans of the Northwest Pacific coast. You find it among Inuits. You probably find it among other Native Americans. You find it among Siberians, such as Chukchi, Yukagir. You find it among Koryaks, also indigenous Siberians, Chinese. And then you find, and probably among peoples that I haven't studied. Like I haven't studied the Tatars and the Kazakhs and everybody in between.
You are one person. You are one person. We don't expect you to know everything.
But mainly, I just noticed that when you look at Odin, who's also called the Raven God in the Nordic mythology, then this deity is a creator, shaman, trickster, and ancestor. And when you look at, for instance, Raven in the Northwest Pacific Native Americans, then Raven is a creator, trickster, shaman, and ancestor. I don't know if I said it in the same order, but it's the same four aspects that are so there's a remarkable similarity. And what you typically find among the in exactly those people, the Northwest Pacific Native Americans, is that you find that it is a totem. What is a totem? It means that it is a relation. It means that there is a kinship group. We are a clan. And that clan consists of some human beings and some non-human beings, in this case, ravens, right? Now, people like the Haida and the Kukwakiwaka, Chumash, Tlingit, whatever they call these, they often will image this with masks that open, and then they have the human being inside these dancing masks, and you can see that, right? So that is the inner human nature of Raven, the connectedness between humanity and this particular other that the Raven clan would be practicing. So what I started to notice was basically exactly the same motif in Nordic material, from the archaeological material, primarily from the late Iron Age and going into the Viking Age, where you see basically the shape of a bird with a human face inside. So this is often explained in relation to the deity Odin as Odin's mind inhabiting raven form in the ravens Hugin and Munin, words meaning mind and memory, a shamanic aspect of Odin. And Odin, who's often named the Raven God and so on, is also the ancestor of a number of specific kinship lines in Northern Europe. So this idea of Raven totemism, or the Raven totem, that there is a kinship with Raven, or perhaps that some people have a kinship with Raven, there is a kinship tie with Raven. That was then also infused by some specific scholars that I encountered, who were basically talking about Raven as a symbol of our time, that we live in the Raven scene, they say. And they used Native American mythology to say this, that Raven is a trickster. So he's also a little bit of a fool, almost a clown, and in his gluttony and his stumbling along the way, he actually ends up destroying things, but then he needs to fix them again. And we as humanity, we are like that. In our gluttony and our lack of foresight, we have actually created a huge problem. We are destroying the entire fucking planet. And now we also need the trickster genius in order to help us save that situation. We need to re-find that kinship that is the kinship tie with Raven, in order to bring us out of that predicament that we've placed not only ourselves but all life in, right? Mm-hmm. So that was basically the idea. And then I was working with some graphic designers, and we made this Raven flag in order to basically say, to also to connect to something that people already know. The Raven flag, it was there in history. There are stories of Vikings, fighting under a Raven flag and all that stuff. But when we read it today from this, you could almost say eco-totemic reading, then we can use this ancient symbol as a call to bring back connectivity in our world. So that was sort of the background to the Raven idea, the Raven thing. Yeah. Yes. Did I rant too much now? I have a tendency of kind of starting to preach.
No, so the gist, really, what I'm getting here is that the Raven seems to be a consistent symbol across cultures. Am I getting that correctly?
Yeah.
It's probably not 100% consistent.
Right. but
there are
consistent
very
enough.
strong similarities.
Right. And so you guys are using this raven symbolism as pretty much a foundation to work off of when trying to use animist language as a way to reconnect with each other, correct?
So it's exemplary, as I've understood it when we began the project. The raven symbol is an example of a symbol and a collection of meaning and ideology almost that goes across different cultures. So it may not be true in all cultures, but it's an example of a symbol that goes across so many cultures that we can use it as an example to show that we are connected by more than we think we actually are, which is what the basis of the whole project was the whole song as well. And not the basis of the whole song, but some of the basis of the whole song was about. It was about demonstrating this with the different contributions in the video as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was demonstrating this connectiveness, and that's what we wish to do with this project.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Something that's always fascinated me, people who have been following me for long enough, they won't be surprised to know that I'm a huge fan of birds. My wife and I, our go-to activity together is we go bird watching. We even used to do a bird podcast together. There was like a bird watching. I'm just fascinated by the little guys, and then that fascination led me to actually start considering them in a more like spiritual context, like what have they meant around the world. And Rune, we had an interesting conversation about this at Midgardsblot, where you were talking about, or correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a Central American motif of blending snakes with birds. Does that ring a bell? It was so long ago, I don't know.
I could have been talking to you about that, but I don't specifically remember it. But that is a Central American motif.
Right, yeah. So me and Matthias have been talking about this a whole bunch, where for whatever reason, right, the bird seems to be a consistent symbol of divinity across the world, like just general divinity. In a lot of the Abrahamic religions, they, for instance, one of the very rare times that God shows up on earth in the Bible, the first time he's a bush and the second time he's a dove. So like there's just this very interesting motif where birds just represent some connection to some higher or other realm, right, or some other plane, I guess. And so birds just in general have had this pretty widespread across the globe way of gripping people, just because what I've found through studying animism, and especially American transcendentalism, they also love birds. Like Henry David Thoreau has like 2 chapters in Walden where he just talks about birds, where it seems that the basic fascination is that human beings can only go this way, but birds can also go this way. So they have this whole extra plane. Yeah, he's rubbing it in. They have this whole extra plane of understanding than we do. And I've just always found that to be a really fascinating aspect of birds and their relation to humanity. So I guess that's my little pro bird soapbox. So I would love to bring it back to the music here. So using this raven imagery, and then bringing in the music, I would love to hear how this project came about. You guys have this basic idea. How did it start? Does anyone remember?
Yeah.
It was so long ago.
I don't. Should I start describing? I went to Christine at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I basically phoned. I think I phoned her up, or
wrote her. You wrote me an email.
I wrote you an email.
Yeah.
Old school.
That was at a point of time when I wrote her a letter. I sent it with a dove.
I received it and I loved it. I love the practicality of it.
Sorry.
Well, at that point, I was almost giving up, because I had this crazy idea that this actually medieval ballad, which is called "Raven Brings Runes," and which is set telling, and it's only a fragment of the entire ballad, but that fragment just contains the core of the story. So we know the story from the fragment, right? And that is a woman who is calling Raven to bring runes to turn the wind so it will bring her beloved back, who's on a ship sailing away. It's just that image basically that we get from that ballad, and I found that to be exquisitely beautiful because it is about the reconnecting. That's the theme of that ballad. Some of these ballads, they talk about the loss of connection, and then chaos and madness ensues. That can be a full point of a ballad. Like connection collapses and then everything goes to shit. But this ballad talks about reforging connection, right? Raven brings runes. So I had this idea of basically using that in some sort of combination with this Raven flag as to kind of project this call to our time. Let us send those runes. Let us let us invoke connectivity back into this really problematic time that we're living. And I had phoned up different musicians and said, hey, I have a crazy idea, you want to be part of it? And most of them were like, I don't really have the time. But Christina, she just caught the vibe immediately. She was just like, yeah, that is a bloody good idea. So that's how it started. Or how do you remember it, Christina?
No, that was exactly it. And I thought that sounds... I looked at the email and remember and thought, like, I don't know what this is going to be, but it sounds really fun. And I was at this point, I was deep diving into the study of the structure of what we could try to get to an understanding what could be the structure of Viking Age music, because of course, like Kjell is the expert on this, that we don't really have that many sources on what Viking music is or can sound like or something like that. So I just thought, this sounds cool. This is like something to build on when it comes to that. And so I was just thinking, yes, let's do it. And then it was Corona time, and I just went like, yes, of course, we have nothing else to do. I can sit in our summer house with amazing people and just hash out this idea. This is going to be great. So that's exactly what me and Jose Malvik did in the beginning of this. We went to a summer house. We got, honestly, a bit half drunk. We looked at, okay, what's the structure of this song? What is the material that Rune, what does Rune want to convey with this, with the music he's doing? What is the message he wants to get out there, and how can we structure the story around that? So we kind of structured that story, so we had a storyline to work from. We came up with a bit of different themes, and some point along the way, I remembered that, and Kjell, I honestly can't remember how we got in touch, but I just remembered, I looked at Jose and I said, you know, there's this amazing musician in Norway who does Viking music, but I don't know if I dare to write to him if he wanted to do something like this. And then I just went ahead and did it. Kjell still is my icon at this time. So imagine writing to one of your heroes and going, do you want to play with me? That's how I felt at that point. I just went, I have this idea that this amazing professor that is an expert of Nordic Animism, he has given us this project. We have come so far with it. Would you like to be part of it? And luckily, amazing Kjell said yes. So we went ahead with it. So we structured this in a summer house in Denmark after I've had many wonderful in-depth conversations with Rune about, okay, what exactly do you wish this to be? And we structured that, and then we went to Norway to record and create the arrangement, which is all of Kjell's doing, in this beautiful place in the old stable studio in is it Østerøy? Am I saying it right?
Yes.
Østerøy, yeah, in Norway. So and that journey in total took about 6 months. Am I remembering that correctly, Mona? That's about 6 months from, yeah.
I don't know. Perhaps I should say that the making of the music, I've almost had nothing to do with it. I mean, I have been communicating with Christine and just I what I remember saying was like, you just need to go with what you feel. I kind of have this idea, but you're the one who have that craft, so it has to be your inspirational kind of. so that means that I a very large part of the time I've just been like cheering at the sides, like, yeah, you guys are the shit, yeah.
Well, that's what musicians need. We're hard on ourselves.
Exactly. And I felt it was a beautiful partnership. There was an idea that came from a place of wanting to create a deeper meaning with the project, which is what art is all about. And then having a good communication about what do we want that to do, to creating a framework and then taking it to Kjell, who is an amazing producer and musician, as all of your listeners will know. So perhaps this is a good time to go to you, Kjell, to if you tell us a bit more about, everything.
First off, I was really happy when you wrote to me, actually, because we've had some conversations before this. You remember?
Yeah.
I was really happy about it, and I really felt I really could feel the aim, thanks, the aim you guys set for this, because it's. I mean, this is kind of like the core of what I've been doing since I grew up, Mm-hmm. So it was really cool. And when you contacted me, you also pointed out that we want this to be a connectivity, cross culture, also to show that this is something going on all over the world. And of course I dived into my immense hive of instruments and stuff from around the world and added in everything I could. But it was because you guys came to me with a really great idea and a really good startup arrangement that I could play along with, and it was such a pleasure to kind of try to take the core of this and make it into sounds coming out of my instruments, which I do have a very personal relationship to, and like so what I did was that I took this idea and I went into my studio and I looked around, and then many times when I do music I just feel that, okay, you're the one now, and then I pick up the instrument and the music comes out of this instrument by itself, which is very much of my music comes to me this way. And so I kind of felt that this this worked really well with the idea of the project also, to do it this way. And then I bounced a few ideas back and forth before we finally met up and did some fixes and changes to the arrangement and recorded the voices properly, and then we could start producing it. So yeah, it was really fun to work with, and I'm very thankful for you guys to invite me into this project, because this is the core of what I do.
But it's also like, I mean, I also remember thinking, what? Kjell Braaten just landed in the lab of this project? What? That's amazing. Just so you know that like a little bit like Christine is also saying, that it's a like from our side also feels like a huge privilege to have been able to work with you, of course. I think we got to stop the back patting now, and
it has to be said. It has to be said.
It has to, yeah.
So it has to be said.
Does,
so
it
if you guys, so I guess this is more of a musical question, not to leave you out, Rune. But the musical question would be for Christina and Kjell, if at all, how did the actual, I guess, content, inspiration, or purpose of Raven Brings Runes influence or change how you might have otherwise approached a musical project? I guess a more straightforward way to ask that would be, just because of the nature of the project, did you approach making music any differently than if it was a different project? And if so, how?
Oh, definitely. I don't know, do you want to go first, Kjell, or should I?
You go. You started working with it, you know.
Well, this for me was so I've been working a bit differently with making different arrangements than just your run-of-the-mill verse, chorus, the C part, chorus. A bit before, but not as much. This was much more of so I've been a producer of musical theatre for 2 years and a choir director. So I've seen music being produced in quite a different way than I've been used to as a composer and songwriter. And this was much more like that. It was much more like a piece of theatre, a story that you're writing. You're writing musical to support this, or music to support the story, than you're writing something people can sing along to.
Yeah.
So it's more taking people on a music journey. And Kjell, you'll know very well exactly about this. So for me, that was quite new. And that's also why it was so interesting to work with, because it challenged me in a different way.
Then I can shoot in that you you managed that brilliantly, and I mean, when the first sketch came to me, you know, you already pointed this out in the sketch by making an arrangement that told a story rather than being a song. And I kind of absolutely love to work with music this way.
Me too.
So yeah, so you kind of gave me a story to tell, you know, when I started working with the instrumentation of this track. So yes, so the foundation was there, and I could just jump in and start painting, really, which is a good way to say it, I think.
I like that. That's a pretty good image, where instead of starting with a blank canvas, it was more like a coloring book where you had the outlines and you just had to put the color where you wanted it. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So I guess so, Rune, you're no stranger to activism, I guess. So I guess I'll ask for the music. Have any of you guys ever done a project like this before, where the music sort of intersects with a more pressing social issue or activism in general, I guess? Or is this your first time doing something like this?
I have, after the project started, actually, not as in-depth version like this, but so when I moved to Scotland, I became an affiliate artist with the University of Glasgow and their UNESCO RELA department, which is refugee integration through languages and arts. And they do a lot of projects with museums and different cultural institutions in the UK. And one of them is a Cranach Centre, and they had an event in the summer, early summer, that was all about how we could use music to get people's attention around ecology and sustainability and connecting more to the land. So again, there was a very much more low-key version of doing it. But what I did there was I went deep into the archives of folklore and folk music in Scotland, and I found some original recordings of field songs that was sung in the area around that time. And then I arranged just the small parts of it to be sung with the audience and telling them a bit of story and a bit of context before we went into the song. It left a lot of people quite moved. So I think, and Rune actually made this point very recently, and well, Kjell has done so with his work, his entire career. It doesn't take something that complicated to make a point about our connectivity to nature. So it might have a lot to do with us doing it together. It's just my thought on it. Yeah.
And I thought the cinematography, if that's even the right word, I'm not well versed in the terms for making videos. But to me, I feel like the most poignant part of that whole the whole music video is when you guys start panning to different shots of people all around the world holding the Raven flag and stuff like that. Is that I feel like that really sent the point home that this Raven thing is a good way to interconnect people across cultures, across the globe, even. And so that's just the first thing that comes to my mind with what you just said, Christina. I think that's a beautiful aspect of it.
Oh, it's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear, really.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys have any? Oh, no, sorry, Rune, you go.
Yeah, we could also mention that a real resource also came on board here, which is the Danish editor Sarah Bøe, who is a very professional editor who has been working on very high-profile projects. And the material that I had for Sarah, that was not an easy editing material. That was people pointing at themselves with their smartphones, holding it the wrong way, and and a very diverse material that pointed in all directions. And I think today that when you look at the video, it appears as this very homogeneous expression that, and that just means that it's smooth watching, but you have to know that it's a real achievement to reach such a homogeneous expression from such a strange and weird material that wants to say so many things at one go. Mm-hmm. There's so many different elements that sort of go in. There are people playing different instruments and all these kind of things. And this so we also had that going for us, that she wrote to me actually at some point and said, "Do you need somebody to edit the music video for that project?" And I was like, Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, she did a wonderful job. That is like, in case it needs to be said again, it is not easy to, I mean, it's not easy in the beginning to make a music video, but then if you're making a music video, that's just a mosaic of a whole bunch of smartphone videos. Hats off to Sarah. That's an incredible undertaking. And she succeeded in making it look like a coherent work where it was almost as if everyone got together to film it together in one sitting. So that was excellently done. Before I move on to the juicy part I want to get to about can music actually be activism, I feel like a lot of people who are watching the video might have the same curiosity that I do. The dancer. Who was the dancer and what was the background to the dancer in the video in the purple dress? Was that belly dancing?
Her, yeah, the couple of dancers, that was because I sent out a call through my platform, and I kind of reiterated it a couple of times and said, send recordings of the Raven flag. And then I had to make another one. Remember to turn the phone sideways and send recordings to the Raven flag. And remember to put a stick on the flag when you're using it, because a flag actually looks a lot cooler when it's on a stick, but send more recordings. So we got quite a lot of recordings. And unfortunately, a lot of them we haven't been able to use. Mm-hmm. Like one that really pains me a little bit is this amazing English guy who spontaneously had the idea of traveling around to sacred sites in Britain and filming himself waving the Raven flag, but he held the phone upwards. No. And I also think he had a phone with a low quality recording. So we have spectacular images of like 1.5 seconds where he's standing on amazing stones somewhere in Wales and these kind of things. But unfortunately, Phil, his name is Phil. So yeah. And then I got these. This belly dancer actually wrote to me, and she's from the western part of US, Malia, and she is doing a a belly dancing project that she's also in some way sort of reintegrating with Nordic culture and these kind of things.
Oh, cool.
And she said, I would like to do some belly dancing for it. So I went back to in the Facebook thread with the music gurus, and I said, she want to dance to it. Can we send her an intermediate version of the track? And they said, yeah, go ahead. I sent it to her, and then she basically sent me that. So so that's how that piece came along. But we got it from many. In one case, I went to the Midgardsblod festival in Norway, right? So here's what I did. When I first came up there, I put the raven flag on a bamboo stick. I walked up to the entrance, and then there was a young guy standing at the entrance who probably hadn't really understood that you're not supposed to let people in with flags and sticks. So he let me in with the flag and the stick. So I went myself in the Myrkur concert, and I was waving the flag. So there's like the Myrkur concert, and there's 1,000 people there or something, and there's one flag, and that's me wearing it. and Sarah was standing behind me and filming the whole thing, and that took about 30 seconds before some festival guards came up and said, "Oh, you can't do that." So
those security guards the first day, they did not know what the rules were, because there were so many people who were like, well, they let me bring this in yesterday, and everyone's like, well, you weren't supposed to. There was just a learning curve.
So all these recordings came in all kinds of ways.
Awesome. Yeah, that was just definitely that's what struck me was maybe I'm a sucker for montages, but just the fact that music video just started taking me all across all these different things, it just definitely stuck with me. So, guys, if I had it my way, I'd talk to you guys for like another few hours, but I don't. But we are gonna have to wrap this up just with one more question, and this is the one that I am really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on. Even though music has this history of being really intertwined with activism, right? If you just think back to like Woodstock, for instance, those basic ideas of just getting together for a cause, and there's hippie jam band music going on up there, like that. That's an ancient concept. But there's still people who are reluctant or maybe hesitant around the idea that music can actually do something. And now I'm playing devil's advocate here because I believe that it can do something. But if someone were to, see this project and say to you guys like, yeah, but what's it doing? Right? Like, what will this actually do for the problems that we're facing besides just being a pretty song and a nice music video? How would you guys respond if someone were to ask you, well, how is this actually helping? How is this actually making a difference? What is this actually doing? And I would love to hear thoughts from each of you on that. Whoever wants to go first, I guess.
Representation is one thing I think about, and then also thinking about music in a different way than it being. So I wrote my master thesis on the comparative study of popular music and heavy metal music, and the different way that identity and collective identity was discussed on different music platforms and represented. And I think some of it comes to how music is used, perhaps. Right now, I'm just like going off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But perhaps this idea of how if like one of the ideas that Rune had with just bringing all these different contributors in, that was to underline in an entertaining way how the raven symbol, which is used as the base for this creation of the music and the video, how we are both brought together by something that's a common symbol, but that we also visually show, and through the use of different instruments that Kjell uses. You've got visual and you've got auditory aids to demonstrate to you that we're trying to connect dots, and it might not be evident to everyone, but I think the aim of it is trying to create some deeper sense of communication.
I think that's beautiful.
I don't know if it makes sense, but yeah,
does to me. Yeah, communication's a huge key. Maybe because we talked about animism as being among many things, it can be just a system of language, right? You're using animistic language to communicate ideas, just like in the ways you guys are using the Raven.
I think it's taken it from being something that's performative to being communicative.
Okay.
Is one of the links that I'm making in what we've done here. Mm-hmm. That's the last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to leave it to Kjell Braaten.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to add to that. Really, you kind of had a beautiful way of saying it there. What it's doing, I mean, for me, the most important part is very often the process of what you're doing. I mean, what it does to you while you do it, and what this project has done. It has connected people, as Christine said. It has connected people. It has connected sounds, which was my aim when I was invited in here. How can I take this project and try to because okay, we have the term Nordic Animism, but this project is about more than that. This project is about animism in a worldview, So I tried to add things in there, and that made processes going in me also, and then it evolved, and I wasn't so much part of that. I was part of making the instrumentation and the production of the music, while especially Rune, of course, has been the core of making the project happen, from his side, and for me to be part here and see, all those people connecting into the project while it happened. That I mean, it already did a lot before it was even released.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything you want to add, Rune?
Yeah, now I'm speaking here as the only non-musician here, so just do like this if I say something idiotic, right?
Never.
I totally think that music has huge power, and it has a power, I think, particularly among North Europeans and Euro descendants. Singing is something that we do. We do it for Christmas. We do it for our weddings. We do it for our celebrating our identities. We do it for our rebels, our riots. We do it in so many situations. If you have a situation, a cultural development in Northern Europe, like the Reformation, when we turned Lutheran, a significant part of that cultural change was that the printing press made available songs that were written by Luther. Some of them we still sing today, or if we are Protestants, we still sing them. And these songs were spread. This was the Reformation implemented in Northern Europe. Was to a large extent a huge cultural shift implemented through song, and you have the power of singing in many ways in North European culture. During Corona, in what you saw in Denmark was that there was a revival of cultural resilience singing that actually had emerged during the Second World War, where people would gather and they would sing. And I remember I saw this older journalist. He's in his 70s and he's a really cool guy, and he described how he saw this hippie singer Savage Rose, who was singing the what is sometimes called the national anthem of Scandinavia. It's called Til Ungdommen, for the youth, or Kringsat of Fjender. and she was singing that song, which is I guess it's about togetherness and these kind of things in the situation of crisis. She was manifesting a voice that what they did in Denmark during Corona was that they basically had the national television had common singing where the whole country sang together. So they were panning between different people around who were just standing on their little balconies in their normal living quarters somewhere, singing along with each other. So I think that singing can have immense power to change culture and to change perceptions. Think about a song like John Lennon, all we are saying is give peace a chance. That one sentence, all we are saying is give peace a chance. You can't say no to that. You can't. No. We shouldn't give peace a chance. I don't want you to be saying that. That is such a. And he's just chanting that like it was a mantra, right? Mm-hmm. That is I think it's a very deep and powerful magic that music and singing has, which it can project into our culture in a way that scholarly blah 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 blah, like some of us are kind of prone to, totally does not have. Right. And that's why also, like, when, like, if you have a scholar like me, I'm thinking about animism. I'm thinking perhaps I have a perspective on Raven totemism and Iron Age archaeology and blah, blah, blah. That can so easily remain so incredibly irrelevant. It can so easily remain so incredibly irrelevant. But the one, I think, powerful way of making stuff like that relevant, that is through song and music, and having that projected with emotion and passion and skill of musicians like these people here, who their craft is reaching into people's hearts and awakening the feeling of, in this case, connectivity, or a longing for connectivity, which is and that, in a sense, it's much stronger and much more important, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. He's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill me for sharing this, but Matthias has been doing music with me lately. He's been wanting me to teach him how to, the basics of, I guess, like playing drum or singing, right? And we were sitting in this room. And he wanted to sing this thing with me in harmony. And I couldn't, it was really hard to get Matthias to actually open up and sing something. And then when he did, he said, I don't really like that. It makes me feel like the things that I try to stuff down are coming up. And he's going to kill me for putting this on YouTube. But like that me and my wife were sitting in here with him, and we just started laughing so hard because she feels the same way. When she sings, when Matthias sings, he's like, this is a sensitive part of myself that I try to stuff down usually. And if I sing, it forces it to the surface. And so there's definitely something to that, where like even just singing, it's just a different way of expressing yourself that maybe taps into a more sensitive or maybe a little bit more intimate aspect of yourself. Song has always been powerful in that way. And then the other, you'll get your turn. The other little thread I wanted to pick up on, it seems like the two keys here are connectedness and Rune, you said relevance. I think Rune was the one who said relevance first. So to me, what I'm seeing is that, oh no, what happened to Christina? She just bailed out. But hopefully there she is.
Yeah. It's back.
All right, hello. So this relevance and connectedness. I think that, what are you doing? He's being at attention. He just wants all the attention. Music is one of the easiest ways to make things relevant to people, just because, Christina, as a musicologist, you also probably have the same experiences that I do, where people get really iffy when you say music's a universal language. So even if you say music is a universal language, what we're really trying to say is that music, it's easy to connect with people who you otherwise would have trouble connecting with through music. And so that's one way that I'm picking up from you guys as to how this music can make a difference. And then also just the relevance, as it makes it very relevant to people. And just in a lot of ways, the environmental shit we've got going on right now, there are a lot of reasons why we're going through it, but at least socially, Rune, you've talked about this a lot on your channel. This lack of connectedness. It's a social and cultural issue, and at the base of socialization and culture is being connected with one another. And so in that way, I think that you guys really succeeded in doing something beautiful here with Raven Brings Runes, in showing how music can bring people together and maybe connect people through caring in a way that we can't do when we're just sitting here using academic jargon, right? Love the way that you said that, Rune. So is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about with the Raven Brings Runes project before we wrap up here?
No.
I think just a quick thing that means a lot. The way it's been received and what you just said now, it makes everything worthwhile, because that's exactly what we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. What do you say, Kjell?
No, I totally agree. You kind of took my words there.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah, because I'll just say, being here at CU Boulder, some of the electives that I take, I'm in an elective this semester on environmental philosophy, and Rune, you're going to get a kick out of this, where one day, we were so deep into just philosophy jargon, and I sat here and I said, well, how do you say this in a way that just regular people can understand, right? You don't need a philosophy degree. And the professor literally said, oh, great, we have a pragmatist in the room, where they were just poking fun at me, right, for saying like, well, how can we make this relevant, right? And they're also, it's all in good fun, but they also say like, what are you going to do with music? And then at least at the very basic foundation of it, it's better than not doing anything, right? You feel this compulsion to make this music meaningful, especially as musicians, right? You don't want your music to just be irrelevant and meaningless. If you can both make music and make it in a way that's fulfilling to you, that reflects how you feel about the current state of the world, or even just the current state of your life, I think that more than justifies, not that you even need to justify making your own art, but I think that more than justifies at least trying to make a difference through music.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And with what you mentioned there with the move to pragmatism, which is a little bit like, scholars will be a little bit like, but we can't touch that. Ooh, that's reality.
Not commoners.
Let me stay in abstract transcendental ideas about how tangentiality affects dividuatory relational ontologies. If we like. The thing about getting real, I think it is the most important thing of all. And I think it needs to have an aspect of joy and playfulness. And that's also something that music has. Like let's do it. Let's make a give connectivity a chance chant that copies John Lennon and just throw it out there and see what happens. And that sort of playful spirit, I actually think that's also part of the call of Raven as a trickster, that there is this, we need a little bit that sort of playful stumbling through reality, and that and scholarship had that. Science was like that. It was a weirdo of all weirdos, the intergalactic emperor of weirdos, who was sitting and playing around with a feather that was falling through an empty a tube that was empty of air, and pondering that in some way that would seem autistic to anybody but himself. Like these kinds of playful ways of actually getting out there, and science and scholarship has, in my view, in the time that we live right now, and is part of the disconnectivity of our time, is the degree to which scholarship has its head shoved so far into its own arse. And I think the playfulness is a way of getting getting it out again and looking around a little bit and looking at the actual world.
I like that a lot. I mean, some musicians are also like that, where Rune, they might not like, especially in music school here, a lot of musicians might take issue with the fact that, oh, music is this more playful, less serious way. But, as a musician myself, I'll say I think that's a beautiful way to put it as well. It sort of strips down the pretense of like serious conversation and really opens it up to something more relatable. So, guys, it has been wonderful talking to you, Christina. It's been wonderful to meet you. Kjell and Rune, it's been great to see you guys again. Hopefully, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next year at Midgardsblod if I don't talk to you before then. But thank you guys so much for this beautiful music project. I really like. I was telling Christina and Kjell before you came in, Rune. I had to literally pull my head out of final papers to do this. And I've been looking forward to this all week because I needed this detox. I needed this different type of conversation that's not just typing to myself for hours a day. So, Rune, where can people find you if they want to learn more about Nordic Animism?
You can find me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And my name is Rune Rasmussen, and I have a platform called Nordic Animism. And you can also Patreon support me, and you can buy a lot of cool shit on my web shop. That sounds like a TV commercial.
No, it does. It's perfect. And everyone, please follow Nordic Animism. It's a great project. Matthias was the one who introduced me to your project, Rune, and I've been just super into it ever since. Hey, Christina, where can people find you?
Well, I am on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Bandcamp, and you can also find me and the other projects I do, one of which is called Whiskey and Witches, because apart from being in music, I also have a part-time career in the whiskey industry in Scotland. So you can go to ckammerer-music.com, and Kammerer is Kammerer, because no one knows how to spell it. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram as well. So please follow me. And I've got more. If you're in the UK, we've got more whiskey and music tasting coming up in the new year.
That's awesome. Christina, this is going to be some deep lore on my side, some deep background story for me. My most prominent ancestor here in the United States, he owned a distilling industry. That was one of the only whiskey companies to survive Prohibition. And that whiskey company is today known as Evan Williams. That was my great-great-grandfather. He was a big part of it. He sold it off before it became Evan Williams. So when you said you're in the whiskey industry, my family was, and then they picked up chemistry instead so they could, I don't know, do something a more boring version of science. So
that's basically the same thing, just more boring.
Yeah, that's why I tell my dad all the time. I was like, why did your side of the family drop the whiskey part but keep doing the science? I don't get it. Friggin' dorks. Anyway, I would love to talk to you about whiskey more in the future. And then finally, Kjell, where can people find you?
Right, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram and on Bandcamp. You could also hit me up at kjellbraaten.com and link on from there, or buy some music or merch or whatever you want.
Yeah, I should have had it with me. It's in my car. I got I'm telling you, this bird. I have your CD sitting in my car. It's my default CD in my CD drive for whenever I turn on the car. So I wish I had it with me so I could just hold it up. But guys, as I always when I say guys, I mean my listeners. Support musicians by buying physical copies whenever you can. It means a lot. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I've loved getting to talk to you guys some more, and I really hope I get to talk to you guys some more in the future. But until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season, all right?
You too. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So much.
Thanks a lot.
Cool. Yeah. See y'all later.
See you later. Bye.